Alright, so we're back, and that's pretty much it for this guy. But we're waiting on parts for it, so when you put it back, just be careful, lube it, be very careful with it. Make sure you use proper lube and not just any lube like a especially petroleum based. Petroleum based will damage not only your o-ring, but it can also be very volatile. It'll explode on you. Okay, so just be careful with that. All right. So, but while we're waiting for parts, we're gonna go ahead and reassemble it until our parts come in. But you know, if you were to kind of, ours is already lubed, so if you're wondering, ours is very much lubed. Okay, so but you know, if you're wondering already, is it worth it? Well, we originally were so hyped about it that we were like, oh yeah, this is a great gun, go ahead and buy it. You know, and when you put this back, just by the way, when you put it back, just hand tight, and then you want to just snug it, okay? Don't force it, okay? Because you're going to break it, and not only that, it doesn't take, hand tight is actually sufficient, okay? But we just want to do a little bit of, you know, make it a little bit more, and that should be good, okay? And then obviously, you put it back, you make sure that your o-rings are well lubed, and then be careful with the threads because the threads is sharp and you don't want to damage your o-ring. And that's basically it for this valve block. I would call it valve block. I'm not sure what the hell Hatsan would call it, but you know. That's it, pretty much, okay? And now we're going to take you through the main block, the main body, okay? So you don't need to take this out. This is basically what sits in and keep your gun to the stock, okay? But now what you want to do is, you want to first, before you remove anything, you want to first be careful with this. Always keep in mind, be careful with your trigger block. And you want to take your, I believe this is a 2.5. So you want to take your 2.5 and take out this very first one here. Okay, there's an Allen key. You want to cock it all the way. And if you want to just make sure it's cocked so that it doesn't accidentally fire if you do bump that trigger, okay? But you want to take this out, this Allen key, make sure you are real careful with it, okay? And you put it on the side. And now you want to decock the gun, okay? Now, obviously this is going to be in our way, so we're going to remove ours. Obviously you probably won't have this cheap little spirit level. And then the other thing you want to take out is, take your 2.5 again and remove this guy. There's another screw or another Allen bolt that's in here, and this one obviously you want to make sure it's nice and snug, and later when you do put it back, obviously you're gonna make sure that it needs to be a little bit tight, but you want to get once you get it nice and tight, as hand tight as you can possibly get it, then you just want to snug it back like that. But for our purpose, we don't need to, because we're gonna need to show you how to tear it down. And then you want to just make sure that it comes out like that, okay? And you want to make sure you clean that up and put a little bit of why I keep forgetting it, put a little bit of Loctite, okay? And then you want to make sure you got a proper sized key here. I mean, not key, but a proper sized Phillip, and you want to take this. Be careful not to strip it. That's why I say proper sized Phillip, okay? And you want to remove this as well, and make sure you keep it on the side. And now you can actually take this carefully out. So here's the problem. This, in our video, we mentioned this is the hammer Sear. Okay, this hammer Sear was actually 3 pieces in what came with our gun, the stock, okay? And the one we ordered is actually joined together to make it 2-piece. The pin being one of the 2-piece, and then the wishbone looking hammer Sear makes up the second piece. Ours was a 3-piece, and there's no way they could have been a 2-piece, because this one, as we mentioned in the other video, was actually different. But anyway, the problem with this is you folks may run into a problem where this goes bad, and you won't be able to do this with yours, where you won't be able to remove this. So if you can't remove that first Allen key or Allen bolt, because ours broke like this and it was stuck. We couldn't push it back. We couldn't cock it all the way to get the pellet probe out of the way. Okay, so it was stuck like this. The only thing we could do was remove this and then remove that. But what good is removing it if we can't fully remove this one? So it was stuck. So we basically had to force this out, and in turn, we had to break this spring in order to get it repaired, or get to the internals like how you see here now. So that's the problem you folks may end up having, but I don't know. Hopefully you folks don't, because it's troublesome. But anyway, you folks can get to this by just how I showed you folks, and be careful of losing. Pay attention to the orientation of how this should be. Okay, this clip size, and you probably might want to get spare, because in such a short time this tip right here was actually sharp. Okay, it was pointed. Now it's dull, and that's only after less than 300 shots, and it's actually super dull already. So I think this material could be better if Hatsan paid attention to this video. They should make this a hardened steel material instead of this crappy material that it is, because it will become defective over time. Eventually it will not do its function as it should, because it's already way too dull and in such a short pellet count. So I'm not sure. I think they don't do extensive testing on their rifles as they should, because if they did, they would have found this to be a weak point. Okay, and that's not even, I'm not even in the thousands of rounds yet, and it's failing on the second one. It's about to fail. But anyway, at least this one is lasting and it's good, and at least it's how it's supposed to be, which is 1 piece. But anyway, pay attention to the orientation and how that is. And literally you can remove this if you want to. This is what grabs the hammer when you cock it. So when you cock it, it actually grabs that hammer. This hammer Sear engages via the spring, and then it locks it into place, okay? Until you pull the trigger, then the hammer lets off, okay? But literally you can take this out, and you can also remove this pin by punching it out and remove it internally, but that's all there really is to it. Maintenance wise, you won't need to do anything unless your spring in here due to wear and tear or it broke. Then that's this spring right here, that's that spring, okay? That spring, unless that's faulty or you need to, for some reason you need to replace the probe, that's the only reason you'd have to get in here. But otherwise, you know, you don't need to. And the design of this, it kind of, there's a little bit too much. The machining could be better because it wobbles, and I hate that. But anyway, that's just me. I might be asking too much for something of little value when it comes to price point, but it's a great gun for the price. Okay, and the power potential is literally there, and the accuracy is there. We meant to take it out in the field and do some slug testing, but obviously we can't do that because of the issues that we've been having with it. So until that time comes, wait for slug testing, and that will come. Anyway, so here we go. You want to make sure you get if you don't got a punch, if you don't have a punch tool, get a weak punch tool, okay? Because you don't need to go extremely hard for this. If you don't have a weak punch tool, just make sure you get like a 2 millimeter, and just being very careful, just tap these pins out, okay? Just tap them out slowly, okay? Being very careful. If you don't got a punch tool, otherwise that's what I'm showing you here now. Okay, and it should pop out, okay, like that. Being very careful where it flies. So just a little bit of push, a little bit of tap, and this is basically it, okay? And when you take this out, this trigger block, be careful because this just falls out. Don't panic when this falls out. You're like, did I miss a piece? No. Actually, this was designed automatically with the other Novas, that this was to automatically engage the safety every time you cocked it. So I'm glad in this one they made it manual. So but anyway, just be careful of that orientation, and we'll take you through in another video. Otherwise this would be some long ass video, but we'll take you through on breaking down this trigger assembly and, you know, reassembling it. But after that, all you do, pay attention to the orientation of where this flat surface is as well. And when you pull it out, be careful. After you've gotten that pin loose, be careful to keep this together like this, okay? Because when you pull out this backstop, or what you call that, there is actually a little Derlin ball bearing that would sit right there, okay? And then there's also another spring right there. So you don't need to, you would just grease that up some, and then just keep it in place, okay? And then just pay attention when you're putting it back that you put this all the way forward. That's what grease does, it's good for you. But you put that all the way forward, and then you just sit it there, and then when you test it, it shouldn't come all the way out even though you try and pull it, okay? So it should slide like so, okay? So that's all there is really to it for this. And obviously there is this block right here like that. That's for the back stock screw to go into. But you want to keep this nice and tidy in place, and then from here all there is to it is the hammer. Nothing else is in the tube aside from if you really want to get to it, but we'll show you a different portion. But this is the hammer spring, and behind this hammer spring, and this is for you folks to have a good idea, when you take your 4mm, when you take your 4mm and you're going through this, like in our adjustment video, like we mentioned, you're literally going through this all the way and reaching a Allen screw that's in here. Okay, inside here is an Allen screw, and all you're doing is to tighten the spring to make that compression stronger. You would counterclockwise, okay, as opposed to make it stronger, you would make it, for most rifles, to make it stronger you would go clockwise. But this one you'd have to go counterclockwise because now you're literally opposite direction. Think about it as if you're adjusting the hammer spring this way. For most rifles, you go tight. That adjustment screw or bolt, as you tighten it, the potential inertia makes it stronger. Okay, but this one is opposite. So this is where, when you're looking at this, and this little hole right here, as we mentioned in the adjustment video for this, the tuning video, this is literally what you're looking for, is this hole. So turn it until you find this hole, okay, and drop it in its place like that. Okay, so when it's inside here, that hole is what you're looking for. Okay, so when it's inside here, this hole is what you're looking for, and then when it drops in like that, you know you got it. Okay, and then you'd have to force it. Okay, so if you weren't confident and you think you might be breaking the gun, disassemble it. But literally you just need a little bit of elbow grease, and to get you some leverage when it's inside the gun, to get you some leverage, you take a little bit of one of your adjustable wrench like this, and then you just loosen it like that, you know, and that's all you need for leverage. Obviously the very first time you're gonna have some problems because it's tight. The design of the bolt is so that the thread is specially threaded for this sort of adjustment, so that the vibration doesn't make it loose. Okay, so the design of the thread is specially threaded for that purpose, so that it doesn't vibrate loose and adjust itself upon the many impact or vibration that's caused by this. But you want to make sure you lube this guy some when you're putting it back. Okay, just lube it some like so, before that falls. Okay, and then you kind of just lube it, make sure. And then also in here, ours is already lubed, but we're just going through the process and taking you through this. And then when you put it back, make sure you put it back properly. Make sure that this end is all the way in, okay, and pay attention that you don't lose any pieces. And when I say any pieces, you don't lose it, is this piece right here. There's an O-ring, and this is your transfer port. that goes there, so be careful. Behind, like this one has no o-ring here, but on the other side there is an o-ring. We're not gonna mess with it. And this is how you should assemble it, with this transfer port that is plastic. With this transfer port that is plastic, it should be in this tube rather than having it here, because it's easier to guide it without more risk of damaging the o-ring if you do have it in this spot, like this. Okay, because if you have it like this and now you have to try and guide it into that o-ring that's there, well, you might damage the o-ring. So we just want to make it simple enough for you folks, and make sure that the o-ring don't get damaged. And you want to pay attention, make sure it's properly lubed. Ours is already lubed to hell. But anyway, that's just to let you know, and be careful not to damage this portion. Don't scratch it up, because you're gonna run into problems where if your o-ring is damaged or you scratched up this port, well, you're gonna have inconsistency, because when the air blows, when your valve open, you won't get consistent shots because of air escaping or whatever in areas where it shouldn't. Okay, so again, make sure that this o-ring is this side. And that it sits all the way like that, okay? Because when you put it back, it should mate well with that area, okay? Alright, so putting it back, just reversed of everything. And of course, we're gonna mention to you exactly how you should put it back, because there is a little bit of technique going on here. So when you put it back, make sure this guy is facing that short pointy stuff is at the top. And this is where lube helps, because lube will help to keep it in place, because it will stick to that lube, or that lube will stick to it, making it in the area. So we're just going to reassemble now, and then we'll restart this process. All right, so hang tight.
People on YouTube, you call me a homo, but you think I step by this? Well, that shit is a no-go. You're all coming one, because